You ask me, what does it take to be happy? And give it you one word: progress. Progress equals happiness. When you're making progress in your body, even if you're not there yet, you feel good. Right. You achieve your goal and you just sit around, you're not happy. We gotta grow, we gotta make progress. You know, I remember years ago, I met Norman Vincent Peale, who was the original positive thinking minister, right? And I met him when he was 92 years old. And I met him backstage and had this conversation with him, and it was really great. And I said, Norman, why are you still doing these seminars in 92? And he said, Tony, there's still a few negative people out there. But if you feel so filled up, as you know, when what you do adds so much value to people's lives, it lights them up. I mean, what are you going to compare that with? You can't compare that with money. But if you run your business right and you add that much value, you do well financially as well. And then you have a combination of all those benefits.
Something allows you to do that.
Money makes you more of what you are. If you're mean, you got more to be mean with. If you're giving as you are and your team is, you're going to have more to give with. So I think it just magnifies. It doesn't change anybody, but it magnifies it. And I think most of us have so much emotion tied up around money because we associate emotions that are more important to us, like freedom, to that, or security. And when you get to it, also people don't like to compare around that area. So what I try to do in this latest work I did with my book, Money Master the Game, was to show people how to master money instead of being mastered by it. Because you either master it or it masters you. Right. And trying to pretend it doesn't matter in the world we live doesn't make sense. The real secret is find a way to add more value to other people than any other human being in your industry, in your category. And if you do that, you won't have to worry about money whatsoever. My very first teacher was a man named Jim Rohn, and he was a personal development speaker. And he had this 3.5-hour seminar he would do that I went to when I was 17 years old. I was already reading books. I was obsessed with wanting answers. I want to know what makes the difference in the quality of people's lives. Not because I was intellectually interested, but because I grew up in a really tough environment. I had 4 different fathers. There was a lot of, my mom was a great human being who loved me dearly, but she, abused both alcohol and prescription drugs, so she was very physically abusive. And I was, believe it or not, 5'1" in high school. I was a little guy, so I got the beat out of me pretty regularly for things that I didn't do anything to do with. And so it made me try to figure out what made her work, what makes life work. It made me more of a practical psychologist. And the modeling concept came because Jim Rohn used to have this phrase. He said, success leaves clues. He said, if there's anything you want in your life, don't assume that somebody has some special gift. They may have a gift, but they probably developed it, most of it. And if you sow the same seeds, you'll reap the same reward. So figure out what this person's doing different than anyone else and do that. He used to have a funny way of describing it. He used to say, Tony, find out what poor people read and don't read it. It's like, because he said, that's the fabric they're trying to build their mind from. Find out somebody who's successful, wealthy, not just financially wealthy, but somebody who's rich emotionally and spiritually and physically and financially, and find out how do they live their life differently? What are the things they believe? What are some of the daily disciplines that they're a part of? And so really early on, I got obsessive about wanting to have all the answers. So I said, I'm gonna read a book a day. Because I figured, a person takes 10, 15 years of their life, they pour 2 or 3, 4 years into this book, and you absorb in a few hours, literally a decade's worth of life experience. And I'm into compressing time. So I didn't read a book a day, but I read 700 books in the area of human development, psychology, physiology, all in my first real 7 years of reading, right, my youth. In high school, I was Mr. Solution. You have a problem, I have the solution. Especially if you're a girl, I was especially motivated. I could really help you with your boyfriend. But seriously, so out of that, I started to develop this modeling concept. And then I learned neurolinguistic programming, or NLP. Yep. And Gestalt therapy and Ericksonian hypnosis. And I learned all these tools. But along the way, John Grinder, who was the co-founder of NLP, I said to him, NLP isn't all these patterns. You could teach a dog patterns. They're beautiful patterns, don't get me wrong. How to overcome a phobia, how to do those things. I learned how to do all that. But I was bored with that. I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to figure out how you change the whole person, not just their fear in this one area, or get them to perform at a different level. And so I said to him, really, your skill, NLP is really modeling. He said, Tony, no one's ever said that before. I said, you went out and you figured out the best patterns from the best therapists in the world, and you modeled those patterns and you integrated them with other tools, and now anyone can do them, right? Not just the great person. And so it kind of started with that for me. And then, I became partners with John in a very short period of time. It was kind of, people were upset about it because I'd only been involved in NLP for less than 4 months, and people have been involved for 10 years, wanted to be his partner. So it was kind of controversial, but part of what I did was I said, I want to go and do things that people think are impossible. I want I want to take somebody who's in a coma and get them out. I want to take on the U.S. Army and say, show us anything you can do, and I'll cut the training time in half and increase the competency. And so John agreed, and the first big project I got was the pistol shooting program. I went to this general and said, I can cut the training time in half on anything. I didn't know pistol shooting. And I said, and he goes, you're crazy. I said, no, I'm expensive. We kind of negotiated. And so the first thing he picks is this 4-day pistol shooting program that they had worked on for, almost 75 years. And he says to me, go do this. Right now we have a third of the people that never qualify. And I said, okay. And I thought I'd pull it off because John was my partner. He was in the special forces. We'll figure it out. The day I'm supposed to go, this is the great gift that John gave me. The day I'm supposed to go with him down to Langley, Virginia, and go underground in the secret area and work with all these different guys and kind of figure out how to model them. I figure I'm gonna learn from John. He's the best model in the world. He calls me up from a pay telephone in San Jose and says, I'm getting on a plane. I gotta go to Germany. It's an emergency. You're on your own, brother. And he hangs up.
Oh.
So now I've never shot a gun before in my life. I look like I'm 13. I was 24 years old, right? But I look like a little kid. I have such a young face. And I go meet these guys who'd been shooting 24 years, or one guy. One was the best shooter in the armed forces as a whole. One was the best in the Army, and one was the best instructor. And so they walked in and said, where's the instructor? And I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt, right? And I go, I'm him. And they, where's the instructor? And I said, no, I'm him. They go, how long have you been shooting? I said, well, I never shot a gun before, but this will be interesting, right? So these guys look at me like I'm completely insane. I said, I don't need to shot a gun to model you. I'm gonna extract from you what works. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I acted as if. I said, okay, how would I do this? Well, everything we do externally starts with something internal. Right. We have an internal process of visualization. We have internal dialogue, we say. And if you use one dialogue or one visualization or one way of using your body, you're gonna feel and behave differently than if you use another. So I got all three of them up there and I said, here's what I want you to do. Take the gun, take the bullets out. First of all, they made me shoot a gun. They go, let's see you shoot. So they took a 45 caliber pistol. I had never used one before, and I didn't know how to kick. And I shot the thing, and it went up in the ceiling because the ricochet off. It didn't build confidence. But I said, look, take your gun out, and I had him start practicing. I'd stop. What are you doing? What are you doing? And the long story short, over a period of maybe 3 or 4 hours, I figured there were a lot of things idiosyncratic, unique to each of them, but there's some universals. And one of the most important universals that they all did, and they weren't even aware of it, was subconscious was, when they took the target, like I saw the target 30 yards away, and it looked forever away, they mentally bring the target closer. And when it's closer, you feel more certain, and when you feel more certain, you fire them more effectively. Every single one did it, and none of them were consciously aware of it. And once I understood that, I didn't just take new people and train them mentally to bring it closer. The first time I had people shooting a gun, they practiced everything perfectly, just like the best guys in the world. And the first time they shot it, the target was where you are and I'm right here. Boom, right through the middle. Wow, I got this thing down, versus me shooting the bullet in the ceiling and then you lose all your confidence. So we do that like 20 times, and I take it 10 feet and then 20 feet, and then 30 yards. And it qualified 100% of the people. Wow. And we did it in a day and a half, not 4 days. Tripled the number of people who played at the expert level. And the colonel reported the general was the first breakthrough in pistol shooting since World War I. So that led to code breaking, and that led to me then doing it in business. And then, in more modern times, 4 or 5 years ago, I guess, in 2008, when I saw everybody losing, tons of people losing their homes, losing half of their net worth overnight, it wasn't like a statistic to me because I grew up really poor. I know what that feels like. And I thought somebody's gonna do something. And when 2010, 2 years later, nothing had changed, and the same people that basically destroyed the financial system, we punished them by putting them in charge of the recovery and giving them all our money, which is mind-boggling. Yeah. There's a great documentary, if your audience hasn't seen it, that won an Academy Award called Inside Job. Yeah. And I watched that film in 2010, and you either get depressed or angry because it shows you exactly how they destroyed our economy, shows that they're still in charge, they got no penalty, and so you're either like, but there's no solution. So you're either pissed off or you're depressed because what are you gonna do? I got pissed off and said, I have one thing, I have access. I've been coaching a man named Paul Tudor Jones for 22 years now. And Paul is one of the top 10 financial traders in the history of the world. He's not lost money in 22 years. And nobody on earth in his category can say that.
That's crazy.
So, and I coach him literally every day. He emails me and then I go see him in person about every 90 days. So 22 years of that, I've learned a little bit. I know more about finance than most people ever dream of. And I got to go to George Soros. I got to deal with all the people he dealt with to help turn him around years ago when he was having trouble. So I thought, what if I interviewed 50 of the smartest financial people on earth? Not people from the Lucky Sperm Club who inherited it,
Right.
but people that started with nothing and found a way to add value and became multi-billionaires, and people in the financial area specifically. And so I set my sight on some people that, like John Paulson, had not done an interview in 10 years, and I got people that people had not been able to reach or get interviews with ever, and I got them to tell me things they'd never told anyone. And then I put it in this 700-page book, because I didn't write the book to just write a book. I wanted to take anybody, if they were somebody who was totally just starting the journey, let's say a kid coming out of college with all his student debt, or a baby boomer who's late in life and not knowing what to do, or an incredibly successful business person. I wanted whoever they were to be able to follow the universal steps that would take them from where they are to where they want to be financially. And I was able to do it because I got it from the best. It's like, there's not a word in that book that's my opinion when it comes to financial advice.
Right.
It comes from Ray Dalio, the largest hedge fund in the world, 160 billion. A big hedge fund's 15 billion. When I was coaching him, when I was talking to him, he got a phone call from the premier of China who's asking for some coaching on some decisions they're making for China's currency, right? It was just, this is the kind of guy. You look around and you go, Carl Icahn. Carl Icahn, he agrees to do this interview with me. Carl Icahn is the most successful investor in history. Most people think it's Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, since 1968, has had a compounded return of 20%. It's mind-boggling.
Wow.
But Carl Icahn is 31% since 1968. But he's kind of an intense guy, so he doesn't get all the accolades, right? He sent out one tweet 2 years ago about Apple saying it was undervalued,
Right.
and Apple went up $17 billion in 2 hours from one tweet. Now, he was on the cover of Time magazine. They called him the master of the universe. So I show up to interview him. This kind of gives you a taste and a feel of what modeling's like. I'd say I want a 45-minute interview. I had to work hard to get those interviews. I got them by referrals. I worked one guy, got such results, he referred me to the next. But I get there and Carl says, no video crew. I was like, what do you mean? You agreed with this? He goes, no video crew. I said, okay, well, audio team come in. He goes, no audio. I said, no audio? What? He goes, bring a pen and paper, kid, you got 10 minutes. And my average interview is 3.5 hours, right? Because once I got in 45 minutes, I dug in deep, and when people saw it was real, they went for it. But 3 hours later, I had Carl. So everything I do is either I have a problem I need to solve inside of myself, and I know if I can solve this for myself, whether it's something in your body or your relationship or your finance or your business, I can help millions of other people. Because once you figure out the pathway to power, once you figure out the pattern of effectiveness, the model, you can teach that model to other people, and they can adapt it in ways that make it uniquely their own, but the foundation is there. And so whether it be money or relationship or your body, those models are there. And so my life is really about that process of modeling. Now I know how to take that and put it in an experience like you experienced it, Unleash the Power Within, where people won't sit for a 3-hour movie that somebody spent $300 million on, and I take them for 50 hours, 50 in a weekend. And people like Usher says, Tony, I love you, but I can't sit for, more than 3 hours. And 4 days later, he's screaming on his chair. Or Oprah said, Tony, I literally cannot sit anywhere for more than 2 hours. Please don't be offended. And 12 hours later, she's standing in her chair screaming into a camera. This is one of the greatest experiences of my life. So I know how to, what I call EQ it.
Right.
I know that people want the information, but they'd rather be entertained.
Yeah.
So I entertain them first at a level where they're laughing, crying, moving, where time disappears because it's so incredibly entertaining. But then I also educate them with something that really changes their life, a tool, a strategy, an insight, a system. And then I get them to do something while they're there, which is empower them. So I call it EQing. And that capacity to take 10,000 people and have them wired out of their mind, no matter who they are, a sophisticated financial trader or a young child, that's another skill set I have. But the modeling skill set I think is more valuable. If people ask my wife all the time, what's something about Tony that nobody knows? And she says, the level he prepares. So that was Ray Dalio. I know I got a chance to be with literally the Da Vinci of investing. Most average people never even heard his name, but you have to have 10 years ago, you should have a $5 billion net worth, and you had to give him $100 million to start with for him to talk to you. Today he won't talk to you and take your money no how much money you have. He's closed his fund out, he won't do a dime more. So to do that, I couldn't consciously walk in and just say, okay, I've read everything that's available. I had to watch every video. There's only a few out there. I had to read every piece. I had to tear it apart and see if I could understand his entire structure of investing so that when I was there, I could ask questions no one else has asked before. And as a result, he actually shared with me, he's averaged a 23% return for 21 straight years. Billions and billions and billions of dollars. Smartest man, one of the smartest men alive in that area. And because I understood so much, we could pitch and catch.
Right.
You know, most people, you know, they can just throw the ball, right? But I want to be able to throw the ball and have you throw it to me and throw it right back to you, right? That's where we get something that's really exciting. And because I prepared at that level, he was saying to me afterwards, he goes, you know this better than anybody I know. And so it opened him up more, and he talked to me in more detail. And in the end, he actually gave me a strategy that I said to him, I said, look, I said, Ray, I said, you're one of the most generous men I know. I said, you've just given me this incredible strategy, but the strategy was like explaining why most people lose money, and here's how he's made money in every market, right? Pretty complex strategy. And I said, the strategy's great, but it's kind of like you told me you want to build a chocolate cake, get some chocolate, you know, get some sugar. You didn't tell me the amounts. I mean, the amounts are everything, right? You got to have the right amounts. And he goes, Tony, I can't give you that. That's my secret sauce. And I said, Ray, you can give it to me. He goes, I can't. He goes, that's why I get, that's why, I get the money I do. I said, no, you don't. You haven't taken money for 10 years. I said, you're going to give away half your net worth anyway. I said, you just got done telling me the average guy is never going to do this. Help me out. Give me your secret sauce, right? And I got him laughing. He goes, well, Tony, it's kind of complex. I said, I'm good at taking complex and making it simple. He goes, well, I use leverage. I said, create one without leverage so the average guy could do it.
Right.
And then I got this chill down the back of my spine when he said, well, it wouldn't be perfect. I said, your idea not perfect is better than anybody else on earth. I said,
right.
Tell me. And then I took out a pen and just said, tell me the numbers, right? And he looked at me and goes, well, let's try this. And he starts to lay this thing out. So when I'm done, I can feel vibration in my body, like I got something nobody's got that I can give to the world that'll be extraordinary. And he goes, go test that. He goes, no, when people talk about testing, they look back 5 years or 10 years. He said, but the past doesn't equal the future that way. But if you were to test something over 75 years, the entire modern time of history, that's what you should test that formula. Back test it for 75 years, come back and tell me what you get. 85% of the time, it's for 75 years. Think of how much the world has changed in the last 10 years or 20 years. 85% of the time it makes money. The 15% of the time it didn't. The maximum drawdown in 75 years was not 20% like you've seen at 30 or 40, you've seen in the marketplace over the years. 3.9%. The average loss is 1.7, average gain is 10%. So if you could go to Vegas and you could be right 85% of the time, and when you lost only lose, 1%, 1.7%, you'd be investing a little bit, you'd be gambling a little bit, right? So he gave that to me. So I got those types of things because I was so prepared. And so when I go to do an audience, a big audience, like I do my Date with Destiny seminar, people do 20 pages of homework and I read all that for a couple thousand people. I won't remember their faces, I won't remember, it's in my brain. So when somebody stands up, something inside me recognizes the pattern or recognizes this is the pattern that multiple people in the room need to deal with, and my brain clicks in and makes it happen. So I believe, garbage in, garbage out, as simplistic as it is, that if you keep putting unbelievable quality amount in, when it's time for you to cash that spiritual, emotional, physical, financial, business check, it ain't gonna bounce because you've been making deposits and you have plenty to give. You're not just winging it to see what happens. So I'm intense about that, but I also love it because I'm always growing too, because I'm always learning more than I need to teach anybody else. Not being an effing dabbler. I can't stand it. We live in a culture where most people are dabblers today because today, if you ask me, what does it take to be happy, I can give it you one word: progress. Progress equals happiness. When you're making progress in your body, even if you're not there yet, you feel good. You achieve your goal and you just sit around, you're not happy. We gotta grow, we gotta make progress. It's easy to make progress in the beginning of something. In the beginning of a relationship, who doesn't have a good time, right? In the beginning of starting a business, if you love what you're doing, of course you're gonna have a great time. In the beginning, anything, it's easy. A job, it's fun in the beginning, it's novelty, it's new. Mastery is when you've worked, in the beginning, learning a sport. How fast do you learn tennis? I mean, just like zooms up here. You didn't know anything, you thought love, was an emotion, you find out it's a score, You go like this, but then you hit this plateau. And most people hit that plateau, they go, wrong job. Wrong relationship, wrong business, because it's not instantly fulfilling them. But the people that go, I'm gonna fight through and go deep, I'm gonna find a way to break through, I'm gonna find a way to learn and know more about this, any human alive, so that I can help as many human beings as possible, and it won't be bullshit, it's because I've lived it. There is a power in mastery. And how many people do you know are really committed to mastery today? Most people dabble in a million things, they master nothing, and they wonder why they're unfulfilled. Because they're running for the sugar, the next thing that feels good, instead of getting past what doesn't feel good and getting to where you own something. That's what my life's about. And I think in people's lives, there's only maybe a half dozen, 7, 8 categories that really matter. Most people, they major in minor things. They focus on stuff that doesn't matter. They know more about this celebrity going in and out of rehab than they do about their own personal development. But I look at and say, if you look at your body, where you're starting, without that, everything else is out the door. You don't want to be richest man in the graveyard. That's not going to do it. If there is energy, if there's vitality, if there's strength, it's going to show up in your relationship. It's going to show up in your business, show up in your life. That's an area you got to master. You can't dabble. It's too important. Emotions are everything. I mean, you got a ton of money, you got everybody loves you, and your primary emotions are pissed off and frustrated, then your life's pissed off and frustrated. It doesn't matter if you got $1 billion or 1 million people loving you, your life is not great. Relationships, intimate relationships especially. It's where the most juice in life comes from. It's where the most pain comes from most people. It's worth mastering instead of dabbling. Really looking at what are you going to do with your time and mastering your time. Instead of having a checklist, you cross it all off. You can mistake movement for achievement. I want to squeeze out of that time what matters, that creates value for me and for everyone I care about and love. What about your career or your business and the mastery of that instead of dabbling? Most businesses are dabblers. That's why they don't make it. 96%, any 10-year period of time, 4% make it. That doesn't even mean they're profitable. And it does not mean they're enjoying themselves, all right? Or they're getting anybody else to feel good. Really mastering money so that it's not a question in your life. You can do and be and give and share as much as you want. And you're not stressed about it. You live in a place of abundance. And then spiritually, really, I think, I don't tell people what to believe spiritually, but I believe that ultimately, whatever you believe, you got to live it. And it should lead to growing and giving. If you're growing, you feel alive. If you're giving, you feel 10 times more alive. And I think if someone can celebrate and give, then that's spiritual state. So to me, those are the areas I look at mastering. Business for sure, but it's the areas of life that matter most. And most of where we spend our time doesn't make people feel fulfilled. That's why the average person is not fit and healthy. The average person is not in a relationship where they have tremendous passion. I'm not a dummy, I'm not a positive thinker, I know the truth. The average person is not successful in business. The average person is not earning what they want to earn. But you know what? Very few people have those things, but a few do. A few are happy, fulfilled, spiritually alive, financially strong, their business is growing, they have passionate love affairs, and I'm obsessed with finding the few who do and find out what they do different and teaching to everybody. Learning it for myself and teaching everybody else. Everyone's going to measure themselves differently because everyone values things differently. Some people value success or significance. Some people value love more. Some value just basic levels of certainty. So when I look at the specific metrics, I really look at metrics of what are the things that need to be measured to know if your life is going to work or not. So I look at it as our whole lives are guided moment to moment by the state we're in. Learning how to change your state, not bullshit, not fake, but to go from pissed off, frustrated, freaked out to back in your center or creative or determined or something that's going to move you forward. It's going to create a better quality of life for you and others. That's a critical skill set. So moment to moment, our life's controlled by our states.
Yep.
If you're in an angry state, you're going to respond differently than if you're feeling playful. But what controls those states long term is your model of the world, your worldview. And I look at that as having, as a metric, 3 things that I look at. I look to see first, what are the targets you're after? The target is, everyone has different goals and dreams and desires, but as I traveled around the world to 100 countries, I started going, holy shit, I'm seeing the same problems. What's underneath it? I began to see that there are these same 6 human needs that we all have, the same needs. We all have a need for certainty, that we can avoid pain and we can have some pleasure, some comfort. We all need uncertainty. We need variety or we feel dead inside. If you're totally certain, you're bored. If you have total variety, you're like freak out. And it's not a balance. It's learning which of these you need more as a person. Everyone's developed a different set of values in that area. The need for significance, to feel unique, special, important. The need to feel loved, the need to grow, and the need to contribute. Some people value certainty at the top of their list. That's their center of their target. I don't want to do anything unless I know it's going to work. I don't want to do anything unless it's the same. If you change anything, they freak out. If certainty is the number one thing on your list, everyone has the same needs, but if it's number one, I know how your life's going to be. I can predict the direction of your life and therefore the destination to some extent. If you're driven by love first, you want certainty too, but love is higher, you're going to behave very differently than if you're driven by significance. I have to be the one. Your experience in business was trying to be significant by making enough money and being successful enough that you would feel what you really want, which is that feeling of love, what you call, what would you call it?
Camaraderie.
Camaraderie, thank you, camaraderie. So that feeling of, it's really love, it's the friendship, it's camaraderie, it's that component. That's what really drives you.
Sure.
And so you figure out how to organize your life where that's the driving force, and now look what you've done. You've flourished and everyone around you is flourishing. So I look to see which of those needs are the top 2 on your list because they control your life.
Yep.
The 2 that most people have, 90% of the planet, if you said, of all these needs, which one do you really focus on most day to day? Everybody wants love, but what do you focus on? Most people focus on being significant. We live in a Facebook world where people fake their life, put new filters, make it look different than it really is, tell stories that, are totally full of it to make themselves look good. Because we live in this kind of false world where significance is more important than love.
Right.
And it separates us. And the other one that we see most often is certainty. People want to be certain before they can do something. You couldn't have started a business like you had if you were absolutely certain before you started. You can never build a business with that. You can never build a great relationship because if it's based on certainty, then everybody's got to stay the same and never change, which means you're never going to grow, which means you're going to be miserable.
Right.
So my metrics are, I want to find out what's driving you. And I want to see, is it healthy or unhealthy? You can have 2 people be driven by significance though, and do it with a different set of rules. That's the second piece I measure. The beliefs or rules of how to fulfill that target. So Osama bin Laden, certainty driven, love driven, contribution driven, significance driven, not hard to figure out. On a 0 to 10, he was a 10 for significance. He was the, whatever, I'm making the number up, I think he was like the 27th child of his father, 22nd child. Most people don't know that. Totally insignificant, not skilled, took his dad's money, went over to Afghanistan, and suddenly, because he had money, he became significant. And he wasn't even part of that movement at that stage. It shaped him. So what does he do? He's gonna figure out, his model of the world is, I'm significant if I destroy you, right? On that same day of 9/11, there were men and women in the fire department, police department, that were also driven by significance and contribution. And they went into that building knowing they're likely gonna die to save a stranger. Both people driven to have a significant life. One is by taking life, one is by giving their own life. So once you understand the metrics, using your language, of what's driving you, and then the rules or beliefs of what does it take for you to feel loved, it's different for everybody. What does it take for you to feel certain? Some people need $1 billion, some people just need to trust God. You have 2 different pieces. Maybe I should chunk up to 30,000 feet. Here's my mission. Help people have an extraordinary, magnificent life.
Yeah.
Now, what does that look like? Life on their terms. So your terms are completely different. So your metrics might be, I want to do this in my business, I want to do this in my body, you be that way. Somebody else might be, I want to be happy no matter what happens. That's my metric. I want to literally be honest that when I start to feel any form of suffering, I kill it like a dead bug and I crush it and I'm back into a beautiful state.
But you've said if you can't measure it, you're not going to get any better at it. So how do you measure
I totally
something
agree, but
like
you
that?
can measure it. You can say, how often am I, like, for example, a happy state, 0 to 10, where are you? If I said right now, how much enthusiasm's in your body, 0 to 10 right now, what would you say?
10.
10. So you can measure and say, I'm not gonna drop below an 8 in my life unless I'm frickin' sleeping or I'm deciding I'm gonna rest. This is where I wanna play my game. So it's different for everybody.
Sure.
But I wanna be more clear about something. An extraordinary life is life on your terms, and there's 2 parts. Part 1 to have an extraordinary life is mastering the skill of the science of achievement. How do I take what I envision and make it real? And how do I do that quicker, faster, better, easier? The ability to manifest what you come up with and make it real, like you've done with your company,
Yes.
that's a skill set. I spend an unbelievable amount of time helping people do it faster, quicker, better, showing them the shortcuts, teaching them the strategies, modeling what works so you can save yourself a decade. But I would submit to you that having done this for 38 years with, 50 million people at this stage, I can tell you that the science of achievement, there are a lot of people that are damn good at that, and they still don't have an extraordinary life. They have an extraordinary life. You see it as extraordinary, but I get the phone call from the multi-billionaire
Right.
who tells me he wants to do this thing on his business, but what he really find out is he's miserable as hell, and he's hoping somehow I'm gonna rub off on him on that side too.
Right.
And so I give him what he asked for, the change in his business, but I also give him what he needs, which is the change inside of him. So the second skill is the art of fulfillment. If you want an extraordinary life, you can't just achieve, you gotta be fulfilled. As simplistic as that sounds, but it's an art. It's not a science.
Sure.
It's a science to making money, come on. any age, any color, any background, any gender. If you do these things, you'll have an abundance of money. You do these things, you're gonna have too much month at the end of the money. You're gonna have financial stress, right? Body. Everyone's biochemically different, but you and I both know there's fundamental rules, laws. There's a science to the body. You violate that science, you're gonna have dis-ease, you're gonna have low energy. You align with that, you're gonna have an abundance of energy. It's gonna affect everything in your life. It's a science. Fulfillment's not like that. Fulfillment is as different as our human beings. You wanna know what God or the universe likes? Look at the jungle, look at the forest.
Right.
It's diverse, right? So most people think, well, I wanna get that because they've been modeling somebody else, and that might work on how to achieve something. It'll never work for what to fulfill you. How many people you know, like you, got what you thought you wanted and you weren't fulfilled?
Right.
And that, I always tell people, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, because if you go at something and you fail and you're an achiever, you don't fail. You go, I learned something, I'll just try something else. I'm gonna still get there. But when you succeed and you're not happy, you're technically screwed. It's just like, what are you gonna do? So a perfect example of this, I mentioned in the seminar you were there because it hit me about a year and a month ago, we lost what I consider a national treasure, Robin Williams. And I asked people, how many of you love Robin Williams? Everybody raising their hand all around the world, right? He made people laugh, people were touched by him. So how good was he at the science of achievement? I mean, he wanted to be a great comedian and make the whole world laugh, he did. He wanted to have his own TV show, he did. He wanted the #1 show, he did it. He wanted to make movies, he did. He wanted to have an Academy Award for not being funny, dramatic, and he did it, right?
He did it, yeah.
He said he wanted a beautiful family. He achieved everything, and he hung himself.
That's crazy.
And I know recently someone's saying, well, you know, he had dementia, he had drug abuse, he had alcohol abuse through most of his life because he made everybody happy but whom?
Himself.
That's the ultimate failure. So if I had no other message to offer your viewers, and you let me give it to them right now, I'll tell you what I believe. I believe our lives are controlled by one force, decisions. I certainly believe in force greater than myself, call it God if you will, grace, whatever you want to call it, the universe. But I also believe it gives us choices. And the decisions we make control us much more than the conditions we meet. It's not the conditions, it's your decisions. Decisions of what to believe, decisions of what to do, decisions of what to give. I say to people, think about, you know, look back 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, and think of a decision you made that if you would have made a different decision, you'd have a totally different life today. Better or worse, I don't know, but totally different.
Right.
In your case, if you'd stayed doing what you're doing, you'd have a lot of money and still been miserable, right? You know, and probably your great lady over here would be feeling miserable because she loves you so much and she'd be feeling your misery, wanting to figure out what to do. But you made that decision.
Right.
The most important decision you can make above any on the face of the earth is deciding that no matter what happens in your life, no matter what happens, you're gonna live in a beautiful state. And what the hell does that mean? It means that you're not gonna suffer. It means a beautiful state is that you're gonna be happy, but that's only one. Or you're gonna feel creative, or you're gonna be passionate, or you're gonna be in awe of something, or you're gonna feel love. Any state that's a beautiful state is really the core essence of who you are without fear, right? All of our suffering as human beings, and I deal with people all the time. I mentioned to you off camera, two people I coached yesterday. One's a presidential candidate, and the other one is a rap superstar, right? Both in the same day. And without naming any names, people that have everything, by your point of view, most people's point of view, they have the fame and they have the love and millions of people love them and they have great economics, financial freedom, and they have homes and they have the fashion, they have everything, they're the shit. I can't tell you how many of them are miserable.
Right.
The majority are miserable. I'm not bullshitting. I'm the one who gets the phone call from the vast majority. When I say miserable, they're so used to it, some of them don't even realize they're miserable, but most do. They get in a place where it's like, how do I keep this up? How do I keep outdoing myself? How do I, I built these 32 companies, how to keep all 32 going and make them all grow every single year. And that's not how life is, right? And then they worry about what will people think, what will they do? So the decision to say, I am not gonna suffer, that if suffering arises, pain's one thing, suffering's another. Suffering is when you're like, I'll give you an example. A friend of mine is a very famous Indian industrialist and billionaire guy. And he just recently took a sport in India that's been around 2,000 years, that almost every village child plays, and he turned it into a professional sport. No one had ever made a professional sport 2 years ago. He invested, I don't know, I'm making the number up, $20 million in it. In 2 years, the sport is so successful in India that 500 million people watched the finals.
That's amazing.
2 months ago. 500 million people, right? So 500 million, that's how it is in India. And people are saying this is gonna be as big as, for them, cricket is the ultimate thing, right? The biggest cricket. So his team valuation, I'm making the number up, I think it's gone to like $500 million in 2 years from, $25 million. And his team is number 2 in the whole world, right? Wow. He's got these great players. So I'm with him, and he gets a phone call. And he's just got done telling me about this great success and where it is and how proud he is and how everyone goes to the games and people are so thrilled and it's just become this movement in India and he created, he's so proud of it. And he gets this phone call, and the phone call is from his management team telling him that one of his competitors has just offered 4 times as much money as he was offering to his top 3 athletes who are the core of his whole team. And of course they all took them, right? And he was so angry. He was like, I can't even believe this. These guys were working in shops and I brought them here and I made them a star on national television and they have no loyalty to me. And he's suffering. And the way you suffer is you focus on yourself. Suffering comes when we obsess about ourselves, what we're getting or not getting, what we should have done, what others should have done for us. It's the me, 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 me game. You, my dear friend, and I say this with no blowing smoke, your primary core is a giver, which is why you're prospering. You're not the me, me, me. You're like, how do I give more, do more, share more, create more? How do we do a better job for our clients? How do we do a better job for our internal customers who work with us, our partners? Your entire life is that. That's why you're prospering. And you're not feeling suffering. But when you do suffer, and I promise you do, you correct me if I'm wrong, it'll because you're worrying about something in the future. How's this gonna happen? Will this come together? Suffering can be worry, it can be anger, it can be frustration. It's anything that takes you out of a beautiful state. And here's what people don't get. You can end suffering by stop focusing on yourself and focus on something you wanna serve greater than yourself. Your children, your wife, your mission, your life. You can get out of it in an instant because the nature of the human mind is to constantly compare things. Your mind, your brain is a 2 million year old device and it is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to make you survive. And that's why it's always looking for what's wrong. But it used to be what's wrong, a saber-toothed tiger so I can protect myself. Now people are worried about what people think about them or do they have enough money when 2/3 of the planet lives on $2 a day and you're making $38,000, you're rich. The poorest of the poor in our country are considered rich. I'm not saying they should stay that way. But you can only build on success. And so my view is, if you're watching, if you're listening to this, my goal would have you consider something. Life is short. We don't know how short it's gonna be. But if you only had a week to live, I bet you wouldn't allow yourself to suffer over a little crap that makes you crazy normally. I think you would probably spend time with those you love, you would do what you love, you'd take awe in a sunset, you'd smell the air, you would take in everything in those final moments that you possibly do. So my thing is, why wait? Why wait? Why not just decide that if I start to suffer, I know the solution, because suffering is me obsessing about me. You might say, it's not me, I'm worried about my kids because they're not doing well. No, you're worried that you haven't done enough for your kids. It's about you still, right? You're worried about what was done or what you should have done or what shouldn't have done. And you can end that in an instant by becoming aware of it and saying, I have made the most important decision of all. I'm gonna live in a beautiful state. Because here's what's gonna happen. Anybody watching, you may lose a family member, you probably will. Somebody may get cancer. Your business the government might change the rules. They might change things radically that you can't even do anything about it. You might go bankrupt. You might get divorced. I'm not saying anybody will, but no one knows what's gonna really happen in your life. Life's full of uncertainty, but here's what you can know. You can decide no matter what happens, you could have a great time. If somebody like Viktor Frankl can be locked up in Auschwitz and come out of that and experience finding joy in the middle of Auschwitz, then human beings have a capacity they've undersold themselves on. We think that the outside world determines how we feel. If people have to behave a certain way, if your husband or your wife or your kids or your coworkers or whoever, your boss, has to behave a certain way for you to be happy, and if they don't, you're unhappy, then you're always gonna be unhappy, because the more people around you, the more they're gonna change that, because they're all human, right? And if you have to be a certain way to be happy, you're gonna violate it too. So My invitation is, as great as it is to achieve, more important to enjoy.
Right.
And if you can enjoy every moment in that state, when you're feeling loving and playful and passionate and curious and awe, you treat other people 100 times better than when you're feeling frustrated, pissed off, overwhelmed, worried, stressed, or feeling sorry for yourself.
Right.
You're gonna be a better parent, you're gonna be a better lover, you're gonna be a better business person, you're gonna have a better life. So my soliloquy is, decide. Decide today and actually say, what if I cut it off? What if I said, I'm not willing to settle and I'm just gonna live in a beautiful state? Doesn't mean you won't feel bad, it doesn't mean you won't stay there. You
Right.
instantly change. That's doable. And I'm on a mission to help people end suffering. I believe in energy, I believe in inspiration, because inspired, in spirit, the opposite of that is kind of dead, right? So I believe in being inspired. But I'm a strategist at my
Yes.
core. And if you're inspired and you run east looking for a sunset, I don't give a damn how enthusiastic you are, how positive you are. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So I'm a strategist first, but I really do believe that people have got to look at their life and say, as much as I want great strategy, I need a great philosophy of my life that's going to make me fulfilled. Right. If you're fulfilled, like you said, you mentioned earlier, if you were with your friends and you guys weren't succeeding, but you're having a damn good time with this camaraderie, it's still worthwhile. And you can find a way to succeed eventually. But what the hell is success? It's hitting an expectation. And I always tell people, man, trade your expectations for appreciation and it's a whole new world instantly. Yeah. If you can appreciate this moment, if you can't find ecstasy in this moment, in a conversation with a friend and looking in your wife's eyes, being with your children, going on a run, if you can't find ecstasy now, I'm here to tell you, more money, more people, more love, more business, more anything is not going to give you more ecstasy. Right. If you can't do it here now, you're not going to do it there when you got more. Right. So why not do it now and have a rich life right now? I tell people, money, that's one thing. Like having financial abundance, there's skills, that's a science. But wealth, it's a decision. It's like you can be wealthy right now. I live in Fiji a good portion of the time. There are these villagers there. They're the richest people I know. They're happy, they laugh, they love, they don't give a damn about the economics. Other people say they're poor. When I first went there, I was trying to do things for them. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm so happy. Wealthy people come over from the United States and they go travel around and try to figure out what to do, and they're gonna spend 9 years to do this and this and this so they can finally sit down and be happy. And the Fijian guy goes, why don't you sit on the beach right now, dude, and experience it? Why spend the 9 years? Why not have it now? That's my invitation.